So hello everyone, my name is Chenay Arberry. I'm the Senior Health and Safety Specialist with the AFL-CIO. I'll be walking you through how AI can potentially pose as a hazard to your workplace. So next slide please. Oh yeah, so here's what I hope you'll take away from this very small microtraining today. First we'll go over some background on the hierarchy of controls and what that looks like with AI. And then I'll walk you through key issues that AI can pose in your workplace. And we'll end with the AFL-CIO's Workers First initiative on AI, which is over on that wall. But before we get into AI, I'd like to provide you with some framing. In occupational safety and health, we use the hierarchy of controls as the foundation of how we confront workplace hazards. So at the top of the hierarchy, you'll see that we're fixing the hazard itself by completely eliminating it. Then workplaces can work their way down the hierarchy via substitutions or engineering controls. And that's where the responsibility belongs. It belongs on the system, the employer, and the design of the work itself. And as you move down the hierarchy, you're no longer controlling the hazard, you're shifting the burden onto workers, which isn't good. That means you just supply them with trainings or warnings or give them personal protective equipment. It says PPE down there. And these measures are the least reliable and most likely to fail. And this framework has been around for decades in occupational health precisely because it recognizes that workers do not cause hazards, workplaces do. And that's important here because a lot of modern risk assessment, it'll flip this model on its head or upside down. Instead of asking how we remove danger from the job, it really asks how much hazards a worker can independently tolerate. So as we talk about AI, this should be our grounding question. Are these technologies moving us up or down the hierarchy, reducing hazards at the source? Or are we blaming individual workers when these systems fail? Great. So the first thing I'm going to get into is algorithmic management is becoming more commonplace in our workplaces, where workers are being managed by AI, not people. These systems can set unrealistic targets without keeping humans in the loop. It often results in really unsafe working conditions. We see this when AI sets delivery routes that are completely ridiculous. It'll ignore extreme temperatures, weather, traffic, or fail to provide safe areas for workers to take their breaks. In that same vein, there's an app that housekeepers use called Hot Sauce or Hot SOS. It's where workers are getting trained or being told by an algorithm where and when to clean. And we're hearing from hospitality workers that it's leading to more stress, they're taking fewer breaks, and they're getting anxiety because they're being tracked about the work that they're doing. And these systems create black boxes where workers cannot see or trace where they're being told their decisions are being made, and they can't challenge the outcomes. When management is automated in such a way, it really makes accountability not accessible. We need strong guardrails here to ensure that actual safety and health experts and not machines are the ones in charge of our well-being. So risk assessment and hazard evaluation. When we talk about this, we need to ask a basic question: how are these systems being used? So risk assessment and hazard analyses, they're not neutral. They determine which controls you get, what hazards are taken seriously, and which risks are completely written off. If you get the risk assessment wrong here, workers won't get the protections that they actually need. Traditionally, hazard assessments, it starts on the shop floor. You're talking to workers, you're doing walkthroughs, you're really understanding who is exposed and how. It's about context and root causes. We're seeing AI being pitched as a shortcut, using models to screen literature, analyze images or sensor data, or even perform job hazard analyses, which is horrible. The problem is that these models, they often underestimate risk because they don't really understand context. And they shift the decision-making away from experienced industrial hygienists and health and safety professionals. And if AI gets the risk assessment wrong here, workers won't get the protections that they actually need. We're starting to see government agencies like the EPA, they're using AI in regulatory risk assessments. And also earlier this year, the Department of Transportation said they want to use AI in rulemakings. This is really horrible. When tools like this are used, it really narrows that evidence base and substitutes AI modeling for actual health and safety experts. And by doing this, it really locks us into weaker protections before workers even have the chance to really speak. So I think everyone is familiar with this one. One of the most immediate ways that union members experience AI is through surveillance, such as cameras, wearable devices, productivity monitoring, and real-time behavioral analysis. Employers often frame this as, we're monitoring your safety, to hopefully help prevent injuries. But we all know that in practice, like surveillance systems, they can really blur the lines between safety and discipline. When workers know they're being continuously monitored, it changes how they naturally behave, and not always in safer ways. So workers may rush to reach some algorithmic benchmarks. They'll skip their breaks. They'll skip reporting injuries for fear of being reprimanded against. Continuous monitoring also increases stress, anxiety, mental health strains. And these don't get put into safety calculations themselves. And I'm also flagging that monitoring the bodies of workers really compromises privacy. So AI is often sold as a way to remove workers from dangerous tasks, but as you've heard today, it can introduce new or different hazards. And we're really seeing this in warehouses, manufacturing, transportation, and healthcare. Automated systems are increasing the work pace of workers, it's reducing their time to recover, and pushing workers to interact with machines in unpredictable ways that can lead to more injuries and ergonomic issues. There's a problem in skill degradation here. When workers are expected to just follow the system provided by tech, workers may lose the ability to independently recognize a hazard or intervene when something goes wrong. So there's a federal lockout tagout standard that a lot of our unions use. So before servicing or maintaining machines, workers have to shut down and lock out all energy systems. But as systems become more digitally controlled or AI enabled, the standard is being undermined, and we're hearing from unions like the United Auto Workers, they're saying that lockout, tagout, some worker all the way in India can control a machine. It's not always a good thing. So there must be always human override here. Great, thank you. And AI systems are increasingly being used to identify unsafe behaviors by workers instead of addressing unsafe working conditions created by employers. So I'm showing the hierarchy of controls here because it's really, really, really important. The problem is that these systems, like AI, they often remove context. They may flag workers for productivity or performance issues without considering things like shorting in staffing, poor training, excessive workloads, or faulty equipment. And this really creates a health and safety concern because once again, it's shifting the responsibility from the employer's duty to protect a worker onto unsafe working conditions and onto individual workers. It can also discourage workers from reporting hazards if they fear discipline or surveillance. And we're already seeing this happen as unions have raised health concerns about AI use in healthcare. So we're hearing from our healthcare unions that are using, say, an AI device. They're being held, like a dictation tool, they're being held responsible when the AI tool itself has a mishap, which isn't good. But even AI has its limits. Sure, it can identify patterns, but it really doesn't, again, it doesn't understand context. A concrete example of this comes from our building trades with ladder and scaffolding placement. We have heard of situations where an employer is forcing a worker to use AI, but it's providing improper guidance on ladder placement. And that's the real danger here. Like if a worker is told to use this device and it's telling them to put it here, but the worker knows in their best interest that it should be put in one position, who is in control here? So AI can misclassify hazards and obscure root causes, shifting responsibility onto workers again. Sure, it can be a tool, but without human judgment, worker input, and the ability to override it, AI systems can actually move us down the hierarchy and not up. So next slide, thank you. So last fall, the AFL-CIO, they developed our AI principles for fair, safe, responsible, and worker-centered AI. These principles emphasize how AI in the workplace must be transparent, accountable, and always negotiated with workers at the tables. And these principles were debated on and voted on before being formally adopted by our executive council. So decisions that always affect, safety, workload, discipline should always include human review and worker input. AI can be a tool to improve safety, but only if workers' expertise and their judgment remain central. Our 8 principles are listed here. I'm not going to go into all of them, but you can see how they really center workers. And next slide. Yeah. Oh, that's the end. Well, I know this presentation was very critical of AI and very brief, but I just wanted to share with you the ways in which AI deals with, the way workers deal with AI in real time. You heard the hospitality example, you heard the healthcare example, the construction example. I want to emphasize that AI is just a tool like anything else. In the workplace, it should only be used to assist and improve safety and not introduce new hazards or shift the blame onto workers when systems fail. Worker safety is not something won or settled, but requires constant prevention and through reporting, getting structural and regulatory changes, and holding workers accountable. Workers must be able to exercise their rights to be protected, the right to stop unsafe work, and yeah, the right to report and not be retaliated against. Thank you.